When it comes to Land Rovers, everybody has an opinion, for better or for worse. But I think we can all agree that when it comes to these 1990s Defenders, we love them, especially when equipped with the right bits and pieces like this one. This is a 1998 Land Rover Defender 110 pickup, and it even has the ideal turbo diesel engine, 5-speed manual transmission, and of course, 4-wheel drive. It even has air conditioning, which is not something you'll find on every single Land Rover Defender. Now, this particular vehicle is for sale. It's heading up for auction on Bring a Trailer, where it will be selling with no reserve as offered from Cascio Motors. This Land Rover Defender looks fantastic for a 27-year-old vehicle, and the reason for that is it is the beneficiary of a frame-off restoration. So not only do we have this awesome non-metallic blue, which has a little bit of a bluish-grayish hue, including the very cool contrasting white roof and all of the black accessories, but underneath, as you take a closer look, you can see that all of the components on the underside have also been completely refinished when they took the frame off from the vehicle. So the underside is also very, very pretty, just like the exterior. And I also want to talk about the styling for a moment. Obviously, this has, for 98, what would have been a very, very retro look to it. I mean, this was built about as hardcore as it gets, with a ladder frame on the bottom of this vehicle, solid axles for 4-wheel drive. It was built to be a utilitarian vehicle, even by 1998 standards. But this look is so iconic for the Land Rover brand. It's very similar to some of the earliest versions of Land Rovers that were meant for utilitarian farm use, or even use by the military as the British equivalent to the American Jeep. And so these vehicles have been just cemented in history and are so iconic, even so that modern manufacturers like Ineos and their Grenadier have vehicles that look just like the Land Rover Defender. Now, getting into some of the specific details of this particular truck, there are a lot of cool accessories to obviously amplify the ruggedness, the off-roadness, and even the utility of this particular Defender. As we take a closer look up front here, you'll find a variety of KBX accessories, which, if you're not familiar, KBX is actually a Land Rover Defender specific specialist for those types of parts, and that includes things like these headlight covers and surrounds, and even this front grille, which has a nice look to it, and even the fenders, these vents over here located on the side. So that's great there. We obviously have newer LED updated lighting, a nice rugged front bumper here with a Warren series winch. You can see all of the diamond plating throughout, and now a roof rack, which actually has, yes, wired up KC and Hella lights. You also have these now block plates on the front here, which would normally be fresh air vents on other Defenders, but because this one has air conditioning, they've been blocked. And of course, we have a Safari snorkel, which, yes, is also correctly plumbed up to the actual air intake system to be functional. As we come around to the side here, you can see the front fender flares over here on the side. We also have the 16-inch Land Rover wheels currently wrapped in KO2 tires, which are essentially the standard for off-roading that everything else is compared to. You can see the coil springs are now red, and the rest of that robust suspension with very, very impressive approach departure angles and even tons of ground clearance. As we continue, the actual side mirrors themselves are also new and updated. A lot of the seals here around the doors have all been refreshed and updated to keep everything as watertight as possible and also just seal out some of the dust for off-roading. These steps are also your rock slides, more diamond plating, a nice cover here for the back, which can easily be removed if you need to. You have your Koni shocks in the back here with a similar setup, again, with 4-wheel drive. As we come around to the rear here, of course, you do have a bed, modern LED lighting, more rugged accessories, but on the inside, if you open up the flap here, you actually have a nice updated wood bed and a full-size spare, which is huge in case something happens while you're off-roading, but plenty of options for storage here in the back. The exterior of this one is just particularly cool with all of its updates and even its restoration work.
Under the hood, this Defender features the 300 turbo diesel direct injection engine. A turbocharged 2.5-liter 4-cylinder, good for about 111 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, paired with a 5-speed manual transmission with 4-wheel drive. Buyers could also choose the Rover V8, but the majority of Defenders were equipped with diesel engines as the preferred power plant for performance and economy. Under the hood, you'll also find the booster for the power 4-wheel disc brakes, routing for the Safari snorkel, air conditioning, and power steering.
Moving on to the interior, we have a brown interior here, which was obviously updated alongside the frame-off restoration for this vehicle. And as you can see here, everything looks brand new. There are no blemishes, no tears, no issues with the interior, not even wear marks for that matter. And it was nicely updated with the center console that actually features cup holders in addition to a storage cubby. And you can see things like the door cards, the dash, and even the steering wheel all match the current brown interior theme. Now the Defenders always feature these very simple utilitarian interiors. Obviously, everything is within reach of the driver, which makes it better for keeping control of the vehicle, but it was also built with things that wouldn't break. So you can see the very simple actual manual windows, manual seat adjustments, in this case, a real deal 3-pedal Land Rover Defender, and we actually have a physical parking brake in addition to things like your twin stick system for that 5-speed manual transmission and even 4-wheel drive controls down below. Now there are some things that have been updated in this vehicle, and as you can see here in the center, we actually have a more updated dash with vents because this is in fact an air-conditioned Defender, which is a very cool thing, and more so on the rare side as a lot of them had the physical fresh air vents. And it's also been updated with things like this doubled-in display here in the center, so you can have modern infotainment-like amenities, and that's also been updated with a Pioneer sound system with speakers throughout, including your USB here in the center. As we continue throughout the vehicle, you have a lot of your main displays right here in front of the driver. You also get your controls there mounted for the stalks, and you also have your hazard controls and even your easy access switch for the lights, which are mounted on top of the vehicle. The headliner itself was also updated, and as you can see, it has been refreshed. You also get things like seat belts, a light in the top, and even sun visors in case the sun happens to block your eyes. So pretty simple interior, updated with just the important stuff like a better sound system, but still having air conditioning to make sure that you can stay nice and cool on the inside of this Defender. So what's it like to drive a Land Rover Defender? Well, it's important to point out that it's not fast. The whole point of the turbo diesel engine was not for towing or for speed and power, but more so to build an engine that would last just as long as the rest of the Land Rover Defender. In other words, to last longer than the Earth itself. And so this was a motor that was intended not just to get you there, but to get you back. And it could do so somewhat efficiently as well. Obviously, everybody knows that diesels are very efficient engines, and therefore, that's why they put it in here. It was something where you could just cruise across in any environment, making this a true all-terrain vehicle. And so you didn't have to worry about pesky things that maybe didn't get in your way so much while you were cruising across the desert in the middle of nowhere. From the steering perspective, the steering's actually quite light. And another great trait as the Defender as a whole is that you have this up-high seating. So essentially you can see very far ahead, and you can see about where the wheels are as well, which helps for if you're actually doing some hardcore off-roading stuff to make sure you're putting the vehicle in the right spot. But if you're just driving this thing through traffic as well around town, then it helps to be able to see far ahead and see what all is going on around you. Obviously, you have lots of visibility points as well. You know exactly what the vehicle looks like because it's shaped like a brick in terms of where your general whereabouts are. And you have the added utility of the actual bed in the back. And so all of that is quite comfortable and easy to use. This one obviously also having air conditioning and the fact that you have that doubled-in radio system means that you have a more effective and better enjoyment experience on the inside, more akin to some modern vehicles, which makes this quite usable. If you're the type of person that does like to daily drive your vehicles or whatever the case is, this would be a better example than, let's say, the more rugged ones, because out here in Phoenix at the moment, it's currently over 100 degrees. And so the fact that you can just cruise around in this and no problems and take it off-roading even if you wanted to, I think that says a lot about the vehicle itself, as opposed to, let's say you have a fresh air model. Something tells me in 100-degree heat like this, you really don't want to be opening up the fresh air vents and letting all that hot air inside. But you don't have to worry about the here. It's just kind of a nice experience. Accelerate. You can really hear the turbo spool as it starts to accelerate. With the windows down, obviously a very more direct experience with this vehicle being so focused on utilitarian purposes. Everything being so simple as well, but within reach of the driver, so that way if you need to cross the desert by yourself, you can absolutely do that in this vehicle. It's kind of designed to do a little bit of everything. You have the physical sticks. The 5-speed shifter itself is actually a pretty good one, I'd say. It doesn't feel particularly vague, and you can find where all the gears are quite easily. And then you also have the stick itself for 4-wheel drive. Everything meant to be very robust, just like the rest of the vehicle. The visibility is actually pretty good as well. You have yourself your 2 side mirrors in addition to your rear view mirror, and so you can kind of see out whatever angle you need to out of this vehicle. So that's a pretty easy experience as well. Another good point is that it takes the bumps like a champ. The incredibly light steering makes it really easy to drive. So you kind of point it wherever you want to go. And what you have here is basically just a nice cruiser that's not necessarily meant to go anywhere fast or anywhere slowly per se, but it's just always meant to make sure that it actually gets to your destination. So that's really the important part, right? But I also want to remind you that this vehicle is for sale. As you see here, it's heading up for auction on Bring a Trailer, where it will be selling with no reserve as offered from Cascio Motors. With that, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it and can leave me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it, and consider getting subscribed for more content like that in the future. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.